Get Pucked.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Pucked podcast. Luca, Matt, and Vito here. No Dave, unfortunately, but this is it. I think this is the culmination of the season recap episode, if you will. I don't think we've recorded since the Canadiens have been eliminated from the playoffs. So here we are. The Habs are out in 5. I think we can all agree, really valiant effort, really good games. Maybe that last game could have been, a touch better. But overall, I think 4 out of the 5 games, everybody could say that they were in it and they had a really good chance. And obviously one of them they won. But they are done. So now we do a little bit of a recap. So I'm going to start you boys off right out the gate. Give me a couple words in your opinion. How did the season go? What's your feelings on it now that it's over and you look back? Luca, start with you, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know. The first word that comes to mind is definitely roller coaster, because we started off like on a really bad foot, right? October was a horrible month for us, and then it just picked up and it just got better and better. The team just like worked so well together after the Four Nations. It just, the Habs really turned things around right after that tournament. Just
agreed.
Yeah, that's my take.
That's your take. Roller coaster.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's a fair assessment. Vito?
Growth. There was a lot of growth this season, a lot of success this season. Yes, there were ups and downs, but for the majority of the season, I would say it's been mostly positive. There's a lot of good that came out of the season, and I think getting to the playoffs, which a lot of teams and a lot of people, a lot of analysts probably didn't have the Montreal Canadiens in there, but getting there, albeit by the skin of their teeth, they still got in. It was it's going to show some good progress, and now we can start saying that the Canadiens are getting out of the rebuild. They're still another year away, I would say, and collecting certain pieces. They've got to make certain trades and certain acquisitions and whatnot, and address certain needs. But every player on this roster that's a core piece took a step forward. People at the beginning of the season questioned Suzuki and whether he's a legit number one, and how we felt about that. We always thought he was a legit number one. They questioned his captaincy. Cole Caulfield, there was some question marks whether he was going to be able to be a 40-goal scorer or anything close to it. How was he going to be after coming back from his shoulder injuries and after what was, what some people considered a down year last year? Was Slavkovsky going to pick up from the second half of last season, which we all know how his season went and how his second half of this season went. And the question marks around Lane Hudson. How was he going to deal with the NHL? Was his stature going to be a problem? We all know where that went. So, I mean, a lot of the core pieces was pretty much took a massive step forward. Yes, there was some scary moments. Goalie comes to mind on that really crazy injury that he got, that freak injury. But this was a very, very, very good season for a rebuilding team.
I think you both nailed it. I mean, obviously, growth is a big one when you think about it from the perspective of all the players that you mentioned and just the team in general. You could have even mentioned Martin St. Louis, who is now in contention as a finalist for the Jack Adams, and the growth there. A whole bunch of things. I completely agree. And to Luca's point, I mean, yes, roller coaster obviously is a interesting word to describe it. Of course, remembering the early days of the season when it wasn't looking so great and they went on some pretty long losing streaks, but then all of a sudden they come back. So for me, I look back on the season and they brought the excitement back. That's my takeaway. The last couple of years were tough, man. You had to be a really devout Canadiens fan to kind of like look at those years and be like, well, there was some positives, and we tried, in previous episodes here and there. But overall, this season, man, like every game pretty much was entertaining and engaging. And there were storylines across the board. It wasn't just Caulfield, could he hit 40? And then quickly that got shattered when he was injured or whatever, right? There were things happening all the time. There was even the storylines with Demidov over in Russia when we were watching that for a while, and that was exciting. And then, of course, the race down to get into the playoffs, which they ultimately did, having playoff hockey back in front of fans for the first time in 8 years, all this stuff. I think, to me, that's the big takeaway. I think it rejuvenated revitalized the fan base, got them really jacked up. And I think more of this is this ultimately is going to be a perpetual thing moving forward for the next couple of years. And I can't be more excited. I think that's my takeaway. And of course, I'll take this moment. Please let us know in the comments your retrospective. What did you guys, summing it up? What are your takeaways from the season, and how do you feel about it? On that note, of course, talking about highs and lows, and we'll stick with the highs. I want to stay on a positive for this episode. What's your top moment for the season? We'll include the playoffs, something that stands out. It doesn't necessarily have to be a play per se or a specific moment. I should phrase it in more of the way of saying, give me the one, I don't want to say thing, but the one thing that you have as the top in the top of your mind when you think about the season of playoffs for you. What resonated the most? We'll go with you, Vito. Start us off this time.
I'm gonna give you two moments, okay? Because they kind of like followed each other. I know
Fair.
you wanted one, but
Okay, I'll take two.
Demidov coming into the NHL and right away making an impact.
Okay.
And I shouldn't take this one, but I'm going to take it considering that Luka was actually at the game. That Washington Montreal a 6-3 game was ballistic, and it just brought all those feelings back again. And it brought me back to when Montreal had a few years ago when they basically brought the game back to Boston for Game 7. And I was at that game during Game 6, and how loud the Bell Center got, and how nuts everyone went, and you know what? I didn't even have the best seats at that time. I was in the nosebleeds with everybody.
Those are the best seats. What are you talking?
It was
That's
chaotic.
What the real fans are.
It was chaotic. It was great. It was my brother and I, that while I wasn't at the game like Luka was, I was at home, and I kind of got to like get those memories back. So that's for me. That for me is the two moments.
Great ones. Luka.
Yeah, so I had my answer already. It was like Game 3, Washington.
Well, okay, fair.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely my moment. Like, it was insane to be there. It was so loud. Just, anyways, there's a lot of moments in the season that could be brought up, like Lane Hudson breaking the record.
No,
we're tying the record. Gooley coming back from injury, Laine coming back from injury a lot sooner than he was supposed to, not getting the surgery after his third opinion from the doctor. But no, I can't say anything other than Game 3. I'm sorry. Like, yeah.
Listen, if anybody's allowed to take that one, I think you can.
If there's a one play that still comes to mind, the ending of the play wasn't like, oh my God, crazy. But I mean, Lane Hudson going coast to coast against Philly.
Oh my God, yeah.
That was great.
And taking that moment to just do it. Like, again, he just put the puck on the net. There wasn't something that you could say that, like, there was probably a bit of luck to it, but the fact that he had the confidence at such a young age in his rookie year to go and do all of that and get a very important goal during that game, that's a play that at the moment stands out. There's obviously several other plays, Slavkovsky cross ice and many other things that you could probably think of and whatnot, but that was, maybe it's a bit of recency bias in a sense, but.
And I figured as much. That's okay. I mean, I'm going to try. I mean, obviously the game against Washington was clearly like a very high moment, I think, for probably most people. A couple things that stand out to me when I was thinking about the question. Patrick Laine getting his hat trick earlier on.
Yeah.
I think the roof went off in the Bell Center pretty well that moment as well. He was talking about it. I remember like being jacked up about that one. That was pretty exciting. Pick any number of Lane Hudson breaking ankles out there. That's always a treat to see.
The Galley scoring after,
after
his
the passing of his mother,
the chest pumping and all that stuff. Like that was an emotional moment and all of it for, at the same time, we don't know Galley personally, but he's been a Montreal Canadian his entire career. We followed this guy and we've rooted this guy, and he's just one of those guys that maybe teams hated him, but we have him as fans to watch him.
It's impossible not to root for this guy. He gives it every game, all the time. He was a constant, even in the darker years there. Like, he's a warrior. I mean, it's Galley. So that's a great one for sure. One other one that comes to mind, for whatever reason, it was kind of like getting a play specifically. It was getting a glimpse into the future a bit. when Demidov goes behind the net and he passes to Slav, right, from a Hudson feed, and it's just, and then they all go. I mean, that was, you saw that and you're like, I want this for a decade. That's what I want. That was
you know what?
We're getting it.
Absolutely.
Or you know what? Jack I Reeves. I'm good with that. Jack I and a few other players. Jack I changing the course of the game because of, yes, he's gotten penalties and whatnot. But
yeah, okay. They're your picks. They're your picks. All good ones. All good ones. The point to make here is there are many, and there are many more that we're not even talking about. And I think that again is a testament to the fact that this year was such a step forward in comparison to the last few, which is obvious and logical given the nature of how these rebuilds happen. But it was just such a treat. I think it was such a treat looking back on the season and seeing what the guys were capable of doing and what the team provided from just a fan perspective of enjoying the game and getting involved again, really in depth with the team, and seeing the success that they had. Those were all great moments. So we thank them for that. However, we're turning the page now. It's quick, it's over, it's easier to say thank you very much, but now we have to look forward. And the season's over, playoffs are over, they are eliminated. It's time to look to the future a bit. And so to set up kind of a little bit of a scenario here, I mean, or perhaps maybe better to say, to give a little bit of context, there's obviously some holes on the team. I think that's fair to say. For me personally, I think 2C is probably the biggest one that needs to be addressed. You guys are welcome to disagree with that, but at least for me, that's my opinion. The Canadiens sit with 2 picks in the first round of the upcoming draft. They have plenty of prospects, maybe not A+ prospects, but a lot of high caliber prospects. I'm not counting Demidov and Reinbacher. These guys are going to be on the team, so I don't count them as whatever. But the other guys that are out there, they got a lot of good ones, a lot, which is interesting. And I think for the first time in a very long time, the Canadiens are stacked that way. And of course, with a lot of interesting names going to UFA in the offseason, I guess what my question here is, what do you predict Gorton and Hughes are going to do? Given the nature of how the team sort of took that bigger step in the rebuild than they thought, and going off the momentum of this playoff berth that they had, and how well they played against the Capitals, who were the second best team of the season. So that might change some things. So I'm curious to know, what are your predictions? Where do you think they're going to go? How aggressive are they going to be? What are they going to look to do? I know they were big fans of saying that they have their mind set on a timetable and a timeline, and they're not going to deviate too much. But you got to think that given the success of the team of the season that just passed, some tweaks and changes to that timeline must be in the ballpark to be discussed. So, Luca, what do you think is going to happen here?
I think they're going to be, they said they were going to be aggressive, right? They said, like, this is the year where they're going to have, this is the fun part. Well, yeah, this is the fun part where they go get the pieces that they're missing. They start making trades. They start, stop depending on the draft now. They could start, like, going to basically shopping, right?
Yep.
I personally really think they're going to trade those 2 first-round picks for a big piece. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I would definitely. Like, go get somebody like Crosby. I don't know.
We'll get the Crosby in a second. But I
think like somebody like Matt Duchene, like the guy is like,
ooh.
No? Okay, fine. That's my opinion.
I have soured on Matt Duchene coming here. I was big on him prior to him signing with Nashville, I think at the time when he chose Nashville over Montreal. I was big on him coming here. Now I'm less so, but go on, continue, please.
Well, because he had a really great season this past season, right?
He had a good season.
Yes. Right.
The only issue with Duchene is because I fully expect him to take a complete discount just to stay in Dallas, even if it means he's going to play a third-line role and Wyatt Johnson moves up. I just think that that's what's going to happen, especially if they actually win the Cup this year, because they have a strong chance of winning it. Like, I mean, if you look at their team, they've got all the right pieces in the right places, right?
Dallas is a monster.
Yeah. They've got the star power. They got the goaltending. They got that. Anyways, just to say, that's where I could kind of Duchene. He already took a pay cut to stay this season, and look what he did. So that's where I'm not too sure about Duchene.
Okay, so maybe not Duchene.
People are linking Montreal and Duchene because Duchene was linked there in the past,
right?
But it's also because he's a UFA until he's signed,
right? Sam Bennett, anybody, just somebody, a big piece.
Okay. Well, so it's a mixture, right? So you mentioned two UFAs, two of the bigger UFAs, I guess, that would be out there for the center position, but also the trading of the two picks. You
Right.
think that that's something?
Yeah.
You're not alone in this at all. I think many
No.
people are discussing the very, I don't want to say likely scenario, but a very interesting scenario where they're at in the rebuild. Those they're currently both mid or first round picks. You never know with the way that the lottery goes with Calgary's pick there, but. Right now,
Which is
mid-round,
tomorrow,
first-round
if I'm not
picks.
mistaken.
What's that?
If I'm not mistaken, it's on May 5th.
The lottery?
Yeah,
it is tomorrow.
It's tomorrow at the time of this recording. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens with that. But yeah, they could definitely be on the move.
Yeah, and Mitch Marner's a UFA, so you never know. Isn't he? Am I wrong?
Okay, yeah,
I'm not wrong. Yeah,
he is. He's
I mean, you know,
he's a UFA.
Did you guys hear about there's links with him to San Jose?
Really?
There was rumors that like if he doesn't resign in Toronto, then San Jose might be the destination of choice.
That wouldn't necessarily be a terrible thing for him, given where that team's potentially going. I can't see him not as a Leaf person. I don't want to make this about a Mitch Marner at this point, but I can't see it. And I see him as a kind of guy who's from. I don't think he'd want to come to Montreal.
No, definitely.
I don't think he'd, even if you threw all the money at him. I don't think.
It's literally just a fantasy that I have. It's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like I saw him at the Four Nations. I went to a Four Nations game. He's underrated. Even then, he was underrated.
He is. But you know what the negative talk around him is because of his last playoffs that the Toronto Maple Leafs had.
Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen with Mitch Marner and all that, and whether Toronto re-signs him or not, is all going to depend on what happens in this playoff series. Like if they end up faltering and getting eliminated in the second round, then that core four is going to have to get split at some point.
Not if, when. But yes, I get your point. I get your point on that. I mean, we could even mention Tavares again.
He's gone. Unless that guy signs for like $3-4 million and like a massive discount to stay in Toronto. Like they need the cap flexibility.
Do you remember that whole thing? I mean, I don't want to deviate too much off course here, but remember when he was UFA last time and he didn't want to take Montreal's call?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
He did wear Leafs pajamas as a kid, so
he did. So, I mean, because it's funny. I've seen people talking about how John Tavares would be the perfect 2C on this team. And I'm like, guys, even if you want to pretend to entertain that, he'll never come here.
No.
Like, he'll never come here. But anyways, I digress. Okay, very good. We got Luca's answer. Vito, what do you think they're going to do? What do you think?
Apparently, I think it was Tony Marinaro mentioned that they're already like looking at what the right-hand defenseman market could look like. But for me, the more pressing need is a 2C. There's a lot less depth down the middle. Yeah. Even though there's pieces you could play down the middle, there's a lot less like talented depth down the middle, right? Especially to support Suzuki to maybe take off some of the defensive responsibilities or even the offensive responsibilities. With Dvorak gone, who albeit wasn't a top 6 center by any means, but it's still
he's not gone yet.
No, he's not, but he's likely gone. It's still less, there's one center less right there. Owen Beck, we saw some things from him, but he's not quite ready yet to come in and be an everyday NHLer. Or if he is, it's at a fourth line capacity. And then if you have Jake Evans move up to the third, so I think they're going to be aggressive for a 2C. I do have a couple of players in mind, and I have one specific that to me would be a dream.
Sure.
It'd be a dream. It's Sidney Crosby. You guys know he's my favorite player. If there's any player, I think Sidney Crosby's going to stay a Pen.
All right, let's talk about Crosby.
Okay. I think Sid's going to stay. He's going to stay a Pen. But if there's any chance that he actually decides and wants to move, it's going to be Montreal. He's going to go to Montreal.
He's not moving.
I said I started my sentence and started my statement by saying he's gonna stay a Pen. But if he has to move and wanted to make the choice, there's no better team than the Montreal Canadiens for him to go to. Not only did he grow up a fan of Montreal, Montreal is an up and coming team, and that's a team that is starving and would benefit most.
Well, how many years?
Somebody like Sidney Crosby. He's got 2 more years left.
Let's break it. Let's be logical and let's break it down rationally. Let's pretend for just half a second, we're going to entertain the fact that he is prepared to move. Dubas talks to him, tells him and says, Sid, this is our plan. We're blowing it up. You've been a Pen forever. What do you want to do? Do you want me to move you? I'll move you. You write your own ticket. You've been the guy. I'm prepared to do anything for you. One, is he old enough to look and say, or maybe I should say it the other way, is he not old enough that he can look at the Canadiens and say, I think we all agree, I don't think they're there yet. It ain't going to be next year. But if I go to Montreal, I see myself there for 2 to 3 years, and maybe in that last year, I'm there for something really special. Is he young? I don't want to say young enough, but is he young enough that that's realistic, or is he too old?
He's not too.
These guys want to win, man.
Yes, but how do
he's
you look
going to
at
be
a guy?
traded, he's going to want to win a cup. No.
How do you look at a guy who's 37, is coming off a 91-point season and 33 goals, carried the Pittsburgh Penguins to any form of little bit of success this season?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's young enough because the guy's a workhorse. He's a machine that keeps going. He's not one of those players that you see the age on him and it's like, oh, okay, now he's a 50, 60-point player. No, he's a guy that just keeps going. He keeps trying to get better. He's a guy who just, this is his craft. He eats, sleeps hockey. Now, from a Montreal Canadiens, you have to look at the other side. You're saying, okay, that other rebuild and whatnot. They just got to the playoffs and really put Washington. Yeah, Washington won 4-1, but not the games weren't easy for Washington.
No.
Well, this is what I'm about to tell you because I saw this where you're going. This isn't a two-side debate here. Montreal is never going to be the one to say no. It's all about Crosby. If Crosby writes his own ticket, we're all in agreement about that. It's not like Dubas is just going to trade him anywhere. I don't think he can. I think he's got a complete no-move clause anyways. So it's up to Sid.
Crosby's still, yes, it's 100% up to Sid. And again, when you said Dubas go to Crosby, no, it'd be Crosby going to Dubas.
Well, not necessarily, because if Dubas says, hey, we had a down year, but I still believe in these pieces. I still want to be competitive with this core. I'm going to tweak, but we're going to keep going with it. Obviously, Sid doesn't even entertain a move. But if Dubas comes to Crosby and he says, listen, my feeling is Pittsburgh is ready to start again. It's just we don't have it. And Malkin is next year. You're this year. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I want to do this as the GM. Well, I got sign off from management. Where do you want to go? That's what's going to happen.
That'll be up to him. But at the same time, I look at it as Crosby likely would want to go to a team. Yes, that's a chance to win a cup for sure. Look at the Montreal Canadiens and just say, how much better would Sidney Crosby make the Montreal Canadiens?
Oh, dude, they would be infinitely better.
But you have to look at it from Crosby's perspective, and he's going to say, as a humble guy that he is, he makes the team that much better that you can take leaps and bounds, and all of a sudden, maybe you're not a first-round exit.
Yes. Hold on a second. Luca, does Sidney Crosby on the Montreal Canadiens make them as good or better? And I say that better, but as good as the Colorado Avalanche?
Oof.
They both got out of the first round.
Okay.
Yeah. But,
well, okay.
Yeah, but we didn't face Dallas. That's not as good. No, I can't say.
So Crosby to the Canadiens don't make them as good as the Avalanche,
but he
could probably go play with McKinnon tomorrow if he wanted to, and actually vie for the cup.
But
year.
He could be a part of a bigger piece, right? So he could be one of the components to a bigger piece. He could be Crosby and somebody else, and then the growth of all our other players over the next 3 years could make us as good as the Colorado Avalanche.
Ultimately,
maybe.
Listen, guys, we put a lot of stock in this, and there are some players, and Tavares we just talked about, for example, boyhood dream to play for the Leafs, and he chose to go to the Leafs for a particular reason, and it was for that reason. So some players do this. I'm not saying no. And we've heard it a million times from Crosby. He grew up a Canadiens fan, and it would have been a dream, and this and that. The man has said it himself. Even Ovechkin said if there was any other team he'd like to play for the Canadiens. Everybody wants to play for the Canadiens because of the prestige and the everyone and whatever.
Well, everybody wants to play Montreal.
Yes.
If everybody wanted to play, everyone would have signed.
Fair. No, it's not. It's much easier to say, "Oh, I want to play for the Canadiens." It'd be great when you know that it's not likely to ever happen. You would say it because it's simple. But for Crosby's perspective, you're in an interesting place because any other time I would have outright laughed you out and said, this guy's a pen for life. Don't talk about it. It is such a ridiculous thing to even waste the time. But you are in a strange perfect storm right now where I can't outright discount it. Do I think it's going to happen? I do not. Do I think he'll stay a pen? I do. But
I would put it like there's like a 50.
if there was ever a chance, it is now. If there was ever a chance.
I don't know where, because I read a lot of things on X, but I heard that he's not too happy about the firing of Sullivan. That's what I heard.
Yep.
Well, yeah, no kidding.
Yep.
So
that was. Yep.
I mean, is he angry enough to like want out?
I think it's one move. If all of a sudden Dubas came out of the woodworks and moved Malkin, I think that's when he says, "Okay, I'm out."
Listen, I think the literal timetable of how this would go, if this were the case in Pittsburgh, and if he looks at it, he's going to look at the pieces that he has, which are two massive pieces, because I'm going to put Letang aside. I don't think you can move Letang. I don't think anybody takes that contract. I don't think he's worth that contract. I can't see him being moved. And Carlson,
Carlson be moved. Carlson could be moved if they retain the salary. They could move. The only problem is it's going to be one of those that, in addition to retaining salary, they're going to have to add some enticing pieces.
They'd have to be creative with Carlson, and I think that'd be tough too. So I think the more realistic scenario is, if you were to do it, you'd go to Crosby and say, where you want to go, and we'll get the best we can for you, and we're going to send you there. Then they're going to move a bunch of other pieces wherever they can. The following year is when they really put the hammer to it, and they say, okay, now Malkin's gone. We're going to move him also. Let him right wherever he wants to go. Let's move on from Malkin, and then that's it. New era in Pittsburgh begins. So if that is how it's going to break down, Crosby is the first domino, and we have
Crosby's
it now.
Value is still high, very high.
Crosby in a 2C. Crosby would be the 1A, 1B with Suzuki, please. So, let's be fair here. I mean, for all those that are out there saying Suzuki's not a 1C, well, then he'd fall to 2C behind Crosby.
Crosby's putting up Suzuki numbers. Suzuki's is 25 years old, and Crosby's 37.
Well, please.
Crosby's decline is still a 90-point season.
It don't matter how you decide to frame it. The point is, line one, line two, you have Crosby, Suzuki, or Suzuki Crosby, whatever. Yeah, that would be insane. It would be insane.
And the timeline's perfect.
The timeline is perfect. Yeah, it is.
And from a leadership and teaching even the young kids.
Everything.
Across the board.
Everything.
There's nothing that you could look at. If the only thing that could hurt that trade is if Montreal overpaid to the point like you're looking at like 3 or 4 first-round picks and all of this, and you're like, he's 37. Why would you pay like basically what an offer sheet would equate to?
Well, I have a question. If Crosby does become a Hab, does he break Demidov's record for most sales in a day?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I'll go out and buy it. And behind me, while you have Price, I'd move Price to the other part of my wall, and Crosby would be right there next to the other Crosby.
I think almost every fan would buy it.
I have gone to Canadiens games where I've
seen
people wearing Habs jerseys with Crosby's name on it.
Oh.
It is deranged, but I've seen it. And yes, he absolutely would.
He would shatter it, I think.
It's fun to dream. And in reality, like I say, I have to admit, if there was ever a chance, ever, of this being something that could happen, Montreal has what it takes to acquire him if Pittsburgh is looking to rebuild. If they're going to start now, they actually have all the things you'd want to do. And to Vito's point about overpay, I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what an overpay for Crosby would look like, where you'd have to sit back and say, on one hand, I'm about to give this, but on the other hand, it's Sidney Crosby for, let's call it 3 years minimum.
Well, it's 2 more years after this season. Well, this season's
done. Yeah, but presumably
$8.7 million.
But presumably, if you take him now, when his contract's up, he's 39.
He'll turn 40 that summer.
Right, so he might have another year. Is my point.
There's a reason why he signed that contract to get him to 40. That might be his retirement thing. Or his swan song,
it's 2 to 3 years of Crosby. I mean, what number does Dubas ask for where you have to say, man, as much as it's Crosby, we just can't do it? We just can't. You can't take our 2 firsts this year, our first next year unprotected, Slavkovsky,
Dubas is going to go ask. Yeah, Dubas is
else.
going to go ask something crazy, but you'll never get like. You can't expect to get Cole Caulfield and firsts and all that stuff. That's not going to happen.
Only because Crosby dictates the terms. He chooses the team. Montreal's going to say, "Hey, man, he wants to come here. We didn't knock your door. We're not like asking and begging. He wants to come here. We'll give because we have to give. Otherwise, you'll keep him. We understand that. But like, come on, you can't extort us." That's the only thing that Montreal has in its corner here. It's the only thing. But you better believe they're going to pay. They're going to pay. If it were ever to happen, it's going to be something big.
A few weeks ago, wasn't it not circulating on X that apparently Kent Hughes, I forgot who he had spoken with, but questioned whether he should go pursue Sidney Crosby? I don't know if that was an accurate rumor or whatnot, but it was out there.
Yeah.
And the person that he spoke, I forgot what the name is. It's really like if somebody, whoever's listening, if you could bring that up again, ended up saying, you go do that if you can. Like it's Sidney Crosby. It's not Sidney Crosby like that's putting up 40, 50 points and you're just going to get the name. No.
Yeah. No. I mean, let's be real about it, right? I mean, if you are not a proper general manager or president of hockey ops if you don't at least go and ask. You saw what happened in Pittsburgh. The coach is gone. You know that the rumors are out there, like Luca mentioned, that he's not happy. You've heard things. There's you at least go and say, hey.
There's 2 teams. There's right now. There's 2 teams. There's 2 teams. I would think Kent Hughes is going to go reach out to for a 2C. Yes, I told you Crosby's the dream, and I think he checks every single box. In fact, if he was 2 years younger, it'd be even better. But just to say, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
The other team there's a lot of question marks surrounding them because they just didn't renew their general manager and their president of hockey ops is the Islanders. There's 2 centers. There's 2 centers there that what's happening there? What are the Islanders going to do next? Are they going on a rebuild? Are they going on a rebuild? Whatnot, right?
So you bring us back to reality now because those are the names that I had, like real names that I'm like, oh, are you guys going to bring up? So, I mean,
There's Horvat and Barzal there that are question marks. And obviously there's 2 entirely different players. From a right-hand defenseman, that's going to cost, right? But from a right-hand defenseman perspective, yes, there's those guys that are there. I just don't know if the next general manager that gets brought in, or if they already brought in somebody on an interim basis or whatnot, or if Patrick Roy even has a say, if they're going to even keep Patrick Roy, if they're going to be like, no, keep these players. We're going to retool the peripheral, but these are going to be our core pieces.
Yeah,
So I don't know, but. Even the Rangers just got Sullivan. Before they got Sullivan, it was like Zibanejad was on the market. Kreider's on the market. Kreider's not a center, but you know what I mean? Like there too, they were starting to blow it up. They already got rid of Trouba. There was rumors that maybe Shesterkin wasn't too happy with the way things went. Other players weren't too happy with this
What's random. What's going to happen in Vancouver?
Well, Vancouver, that's another mess there. Like is Pettersson happy? Is he not happy? But he's another center. The only thing with Pettersson is all the skill and talent in the world. But if this season and even the end of last season showed anything, is there's a lack of heart in his game.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I'm not liking that too much. But yes, it's hard to look at a guy like Pettersson and be like, guy got 90 points 2 years ago, 90 plus points 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting. Now, obviously the Crosby thing. I mean, bottom line though is, let me ask you, Luca, I guess, how do I phrase this? What's the minimum the team has to do in this offseason for you to be satisfied? I don't necessarily want you to give me a name, but what do they need to do at a minimum? Minimum? At an absolute minimum.
2C. 1,000%.
That's it.
I mean, the playoffs are as a minimum. Okay. The playoffs are like it's as obvious as it gets that we needed our 2C. We don't have that. That's the minimum piece that we're lacking. And then a winger and a really good winger is something else that we're missing. That the Habs are missing.
Okay, so it doesn't talk defense. No? Interesting. Okay, Vito.
You asked minimum, Matt.
I said minimum. You did not put defense in the minimum.
No, I mean, if we want to talk further, defense is definitely
obviously. And then, I mean, we can go on and on. Sure. But at a minimum, 2C and potentially a winger to bolster.
Yeah, no. With
Demidov scoring, that's what I'm trying to say.
With Demidov there and with a full offseason for Line A, I'm not too worried about the wing so much. And plus, Kirby Dach's going to come back, so he's likely going to get a winger's role instead of playing on the center.
That's a forgotten man, isn't he?
Yeah, so I think it was Brian Wild who had said it on TSN 690 was that he definitely envisions Kirby Dach being more on the as a third line winger right now and get the favorable matchups and help him out, and maybe you get something if he doesn't get hurt. In fact, he even mentioned that Patrick Laine would benefit from being a third line winger. But just to say, the wing is not really a concern for me. The 2C is the biggest concern, even more than the right-hand defenseman, mainly because they weren't afraid to plug left-hand defensemen on the right side and whatnot, and they've already addressed the David Savard replacement in Carrier on the right side. Eventually, Reinbacher is going to play on the right side. Eventually, Logan Mailloux is going to probably come on the right side, provided they don't trade him again or talk about trading him again, I should say. So I'm not concerned as much about the right defenseman, although we did record an episode in the past where if Montreal somehow, some way offer sheet or got somebody like Dobson in, it'd be a massive game changer, right? But it's more that 2C, because when you look at the NHL, every team's trying to keep that 2C that they have. And the ones that want to leave, it's only because they feel like they could play a 1C role or they want more money or whatever the case may be there. But it's tougher. You're looking at the NHL and there's two positions in the entire NHL that is like questionable. And one position I've always said, this is the worst era for number one NHL goalies in the longest time, if ever. Okay. And the second thing is centers, is those bona fide, what they are, 2Cs, plug them. They're going to give you those 60, 70 points a season potentially, and just, have defensive responsibility. That's missing too in the NHL. You're going to find across other teams, and there's some people that are going to argue and say, but the Montreal Canadiens have a 2C right now in Suzuki, and that's a stupid argument. I don't ever want to hear it ever again. But it's just that's where I see Montreal. The minimum to me, if they address the 2C with somebody that you look and say, that is the acquisition.
No, listen,
I can see it.
We're all in agreement. The drop off from Suzuki to the next center is the biggest drop off on the team. When you look at the wingers from the first line wingers down, when you look at the defensemen and even the goalies, the discrepancy between Suzuki and every other
no second center right now.
Every other
Newark struggled. Newark would be a lot better on the wing, and he was terrible at faceoffs. No offense to Newhook, the speed is fantastic, but you weren't strong in
the man can't finish either.
I'm sorry. He's a great player. Just he can't not finish. He can.
Yeah, Lehkonen couldn't finish too, and look what happened when he went to another team.
Yeah.
But then you have Jake Evans, who, after he got his contract, he came down to earth, and you saw the type of player that he really is. It was that player. This is him. This is who he is. Guy was a fourth line who could play as a third line and would not look out of place on the third line. But his faceoffs were okay. Then Kirby Dach, his faceoffs are probably the worst on the team as a guy who was supposed to be the 2C. Now, I'm going to still give the benefit of the doubt to this in the sense that you get hurt that many times and you're that young, your progression is going to be impacted. There's no two ways about that. Dvorak is likely gone. Beck is not in the NHL yet. Kapanen tried as a 4C, and he's not going to be a 2C. So, there's nobody else.
I mean, listen.
They have the worst center lineup for a playoff team.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. I mean, that is the bar. We're all in agreement. That is the bar. Anybody else that says anything else, I mean, we'd love to know it. Let us know in the comments if you disagree. But I think, given what we just saw, and the goal is to get to playoff hockey, yes? And when we saw playoff hockey played, it was the most obvious thing. The moment that first line was not on, it was like you're holding your breath and you're in your own zone for the majority of the time.
Something else. It's that you're nailing it. You're right. That first line, again, extremely important. They were very strong when they were playing. But one thing that playoff series told fans, probably told management, analysts, they need to get bigger and more physical as well.
Well, they got bodies, but the other thing, another thing that people didn't really talk about too much, and I mean, I say this as not necessarily an incredibly old individual, but I'm certainly not 18 anymore. There is a difference. They were the youngest team in the playoffs,
100%.
like far and away. They had many rookies, and they're very, very young. Old man Suzuki's 25 years old, and he's old man on the team. Okay, there is a difference, even in a guy who's Slafkovsky's size, when a guy who is just turned 20 and is like 6'4", 210 hits you versus a 32-year-old who's basically the same size. They hit different. They call it boy strength and man strength. It's been talked about for a long time, right? There is a difference. And I don't necessarily think they have to go out and they have to do something to address that. They simply need to let them get older, and it will come. They're simply just going to get stronger. It's just, you're going to see it. They're not going to get shoved off the puck so easily. And I'm talking about even guys like Lane Hudson, who is smaller, and Cole Caulfield, who are smaller guys, and there's nothing you can do about that. They just simply are smaller guys. They use different skill sets. They're a little bit more aloof out there and a little bit more shrifty on the ice. But the older they get, they're going to get stronger. This is just inevitable.
Well, you see what Caulfield actually.
And
exactly. He's been playing a bigger game over the years. You know, he's been hitting a little bit more, which is funny to see. Tiny little Caulfield hitting.
That's right. Now, okay, it's like shooting a BB at some guys. Sometimes you see him run and smack a guy, and he kind of bounces off. But it's an inevitability. This will be addressed, is my opinion. I don't think you have to do it. If you happen to bring somebody in who is a big boy too, all the better for it. Yeah, it only helps. But that's my take on that. I'm just my 2 cents. We are taking this a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I did have one other thing I wanted to ask you guys, and because it kind of made me laugh when I wrote it, I simply want to get it out there. Upon reflection, who, if anybody, would you like to take the opportunity now to apologize to? And I say that for perhaps comments that you might have made amongst yourself, to friends, to in your own head, whatever, just general sentiments. Who would you like to take a time to say, you know what, I had it wrong. Given how they played this season, I owe this man an apology. Or I thought they had this big issue in their game, but this season played out, and it looks like that issue has been solved. And you know what, I owe them an apology. Is there anybody you'd like to take an opportunity to take the hat off and say, you know what, I'm sorry?
Who's going first?
Either. Anybody.
Monty.
That's my guy. Okay. Yeah.
I'll say Monty, and it's not because I said that he wasn't a good goalie at the beginning of the season, and probably people are still going to agree with the statement I made at the beginning of the season. But it's that he was just he's the de facto number one, and that's what I said.
He's not a one.
That's what I said at the beginning of the season was that he's not a number one goalie. That he's he's a good backup goalie on any other team. It's going to be a huge test to see him playing, getting 40, 50 starts. Well, the guy exceeded my expectations. Did he let in some really questionable goals at times? Yes, he did.
They all at some point.
But the fact is that he was one of the most – he played – out of all the goalies in the NHL, I think he was third or fourth in most games played.
Yeah, definitely top 5, yep.
He got 30-plus wins. There was games where he really kept Montreal in or even bailed them out.
Just look at the playoffs.
The playoffs up until he got hurt and he got, what was it? He tore three muscles in his groin or something like that. Whatever. Yeah. He's got 3 tears in his groin. Up until that point, he was playing at above 920 save percentage. So if there's an apology to be made, it's probably towards Montembeault. Again, not because I bashed him and said he sucked or anything like that. I just didn't expect him to rise up to the occasion the way that he did.
That's what I'm getting at. Excellent pick. Luca?
Josh Anderson? Josh Anderson is mine, I think.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
I mean, last year I wanted nothing to do with him. I couldn't watch him play. And this year I was like, he's doing great this year. And then playoffs came, and I'm like, where the hell were you all year?
No.
Just he blew my mind. I saw him he's fantastic. Just really good playoff monster.
Honorable mention, Newhook.
Oh, okay. They're doing this in the
Newhook. Because
Yeah?
Newhook,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to give him a bit of an honorable mention, mainly because he started to find his game and his role within the team and using his speed correctly. Last year, I remember when Newhook played, everyone was like, okay, so they paid a first and a second, basically, for a 30-pointer type of guy, for former first-round pick, right? And you're like, yeah. But now you're seeing, like, you could see his strengths. Like, he's got a certain, for today's style of hockey, he just has to work on the finishing and getting the goals in and being a bit more productive. But
this man can never finish.
This guy's his speed is right up there with some of the fastest.
Stick handle, though. His stick handling is insane too.
He's very.
He's
good.
got everything. In my opinion, he has everything except the finish. He can't score. Just
can't score.
But again, he's one of those guys. Lehkonen couldn't finish either.
Yeah.
So is he gonna? And Newhook is still young enough. And okay, Newhook and Lehkonen are not the same style of player. But just to say, like, he's got that kind of game that you could see in a couple of years where he's going to provide some, maybe not necessarily full-fledged secondary scoring, but he's going to put up some numbers on a third line that you're going to be like, these are very good numbers for a third liner.
Okay. I mean, Newhook, honorable mention, I think is fine. I think if you would have said Newhook as your guy, I might have scratched my head a bit more, but honorable mention is fine. You both took probably the two perfect players to tip the hat to. I think everybody in the fandom thought the same way and deserves a little bit of a well done. I'll give you one more. Oh, and again, we just sung his praises a little bit, but Gallagher.
I was just gonna say,
Gallagher.
I made a bet with both you and Dave.
Yeah, which he didn't meet, by the way. So you do owe us.
Don't care to Gallagher.
Okay, but
that is the equivalent.
This guy, I honest to God I really thought, as much as he gives everything he can give, I just didn't think he had anything left to give. That was the takeaway.
We're already putting him on LTIR.
I mean, I didn't think I thought if you ever saw 25 points again from him, it was like, okay. I just thought the hands were busted. I just thought he took too much of a beating. And what he did this year, I mean, you know what? You got to take the hat off. I have to say, I am sorry, Brendan Gallagher. I did not know you still possessed what you have. And I hope that isn't I hope you didn't give it all this season and that's it. I hope you continue to show a bit.
You know what I've always said? Every good player has one more good season.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But until that day comes and until next season comes to its conclusion and we find out what he's up and where he's at, I have to give my hat to Gallagher. Obviously, Montembeault and Anderson as well. Absolutely.
You give your hat to Gallagher.
I give it to him. I don't even take it. I give him my hat because I really didn't think he had it in him anymore. And I'm very happy to be proven wrong. So that's going to be it for this episode. You know what? We haven't talked yet, full disclosure, about if we're going to continue to do a bit more throughout the course of the playoffs, or maybe we're going to take maybe a tiny hiatus until the draft and start talking about that a bit. But hopefully we won't. I think we still have a lot of desire to keep doing this. So thanks very much for being with us for this season. If you made it through this particularly longer episode, we appreciate you. And late addition to the team, Luca here. We're very happy to have you and hope to keep you around for a long, long time. But let us know, as always, please, in the comments, any of the topics we talked about today, give us your feedback, give us your takes. You could talk about our takes and let us know how right or wrong we are. We always love that. And even more so when you tell us your own, answering some of the things that we talk about and reading some of those answers that you guys give really is some of the best stuff that we get out of this podcast. And we really, really look forward to it. So again, thanks very much for being here for this ride. The train don't stop. We're going to keep on keeping on. We hope to see you guys there. For Dave, in absence, Luca and Vito, I'm Matt. And this was
Get Pucked.